right, we are recording. Hello, everybody. My name is Naja Hall. You all know me as Coach Naja. I'm the founder of Blended in Black and VIP Stepmom. Today, we're taking it in a different route. We are talking about secondary infertility. Now, what is secondary infertility, you ask? Well, it's something that affects a lot of couples and women across the globe. Secondary infertility is exactly as it sounds. It's when a woman has already given birth to a live child and carried through the full pregnancy. However, there's an issue with having another child. And it's not only a woman issue, it could also come from the man too. Today, we are talking to Dr. Ariel Harrison. She's a PhD. Yes, smart Black woman. We are talking about secondary infertility in Black women. She's just finished doing a lot of research focusing on Black women, Black families, and Black couples. Dr. Ariel, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am so happy you're diving into this topic. But before we do that, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and why you are so led to focus on this particular topic.
Well, I am a licensed professional counselor. I'm also a certified and licensed school counselor, and I am the academic program coordinator of the school counseling program at Walden University, where I'm also an instructor. So I do a lot of things that center around counseling and teaching other people how to be counselors. I kind of got into this subject because of real life. I ended up having some secondary infertility challenges. And like most people, you don't know that you have secondary infertility challenges until you have them. And so it was something new to me. It was something that in the beginning, I didn't know if anybody around me had experienced. And so just based on my experience, I wanted to see what was going on with other Black women and if they were experiencing similar things or if their stories were unique and what I could do as a counselor, as a person who's teaching counselors to help this population.
It's so interesting because when I knew it was a thing, but we hear so much about infertility and the impact it has, and infertility is defined as I believe you're trying to conceive for a year and it's not happening, right?
Yes.
So you think, all right, I've already had one baby. Clearly, when I get ready to pop out numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. It's not going to be an issue. And what are some of the main causes? Like how would something like this happen to a woman's or her partners? Because I keep thinking I have to remind myself and everybody else. It's not just us women. It's sometimes our partners.
It is. And sometimes it's the mix. So the answer to your question is is interesting because sometimes there is a cause, meaning a lot of women might have some reproductive issues, fibroids or endometriosis or cyst or some things of that nature where medically there's a reason why. You talked about infertility where there's male infertility where things are going on with the men. And sometimes we just don't know, just things happen. There are chromosomal abnormalities to where, the woman or the man might do well and produce a child with someone else. But then when it gets to this partner, there are issues going on with that partner. And then, yeah, that's the difficult part because for
So
some
you're saying it's
women
like
and men, it's unexplained.
so there are actually cases where people's chromosomes, like their DNAs, are just not wanting to do the thing and mix with each other.
No,
Oh, I didn't know that.
right.
So how do you know if you're with someone who your DNA doesn't like theirs?
Well, it really depends on how far you go because there are a lot of genetic testing that can be done. A lot of the women in my study started working with reproductive doctors to help run tests, and that's kind of how you find out what's going on. They can do genetic tests on you, your partner. If you decide to go through IVF, they can do genetic tests on those embryos before they put them back in just to see what's going on. But it really makes a difference when you work with a reproductive doctor because then they could run those specific tests to find out if there's something going on with you, if there's something going on with your partner, or if it's the both of you that something might be happening.
Is that what, because I know you said it was your own personal experience that opened up your curiosity to start to want to look more into this. So how did you find out what it was within your own situation?
And I just found out. So that is
Really?
recent
Oh, so we have an exclusive.
information. That is
Yes.
recent information. For a long time. We did not know. And there are basic tests where you can find out, kind of like I said before, blood tests, thyroid issues, reproductive things going on. I did all of those major tests and everything came back completely normal, which
Fine.
is not fun if you
That's
want, because you
frustrating because
want.
you're like, you can't find what's wrong. You can't.
Right. And when somebody tells you there's nothing wrong, but there's obviously something wrong, it's hard to understand that. But we started working with a reproductive doctor, and through those tests, through those genetic tests, which are interesting because you find out if you're a carrier for anything. Through that, we kind of found out what was going on with chromosomes and how some of them can match up and some of them cannot.
So how do you alleviate that then? If you still want a partner, a child with your partner, what do you do about chromosomes, or can it be done?
I think every case is different. However, with doctors and depending on how much you want to spend or what's in your spending budget, you can work with a reproductive doctor to do IVF, and you can collect or try to collect more eggs, fertilize more eggs, and then get them to test them and just figure out which ones are best to try to help
Okay,
with
so
that process.
this sounds very expensive. Like, I don't know, it differs for everybody, but like, what's the damage? Like, what are we talking to spend on these tests and the procedures and all of that?
That's the interesting part because everybody's body is different. So, what might work for one person may not work for the other. Everybody's insurance is different. I've talked to
Mm.
people whose insurance covers different prescriptions. Some of them do not. You can spend thousands. I heard one man who said he spent 15,000 on the procedure because insurance didn't cover a lot of it. And so it really varies depending on what your case is, what's going on with you or your partner, but a few $1,000s typically, and that's just really based on what your
And that's
insurance
just
will
base,
cover.
yeah. So that's just the base cost. Like, you're gonna come out of a nice car, nice,
Yeah. Not
nice,
maybe not a nice car.
a nice
Well,
used
yes, a nice
a
used car.
nice used Acura,
Hmm.
13 Acura. Okay, so hey,
A few mortgage payments.
oh, okay, so the psychological effects um on something like this, like, I'm sure that has to do something to your mind and your psyche. What did you see? How did the women in the study respond to the just the emotional side of this?
That was my motivation for exploring it,
Okay.
and specifically with African American women, because African American women have been known to fall into what's called the strong Black woman schema. And I notice a lot of that going on with the women that I talk with. And so depression, sadness, anger, guilt. A lot of the women had multiple miscarriages, and so that loss, that grief process, shame, confusion, wondering, what's going on with my body? Did I do something in the past? Should I not have taken birth control? I had
Mm.
an abortion at an earlier age. Um, just a lot of confusion, a lot of guilt, a lot of depression, a lot of sadness, and feeling as though it should be secret. And so a lot of the women or the couples would keep that information between them. And for me, it was really difficult, especially in the beginning, for me to even get women to tell me their story because nobody really wanted to go through that process. And even for some of my participants, they had miscarriages 20 years ago or 10 years ago, and it was still like the emotions were still there. But with this particular group, especially women who already have children or they're in blended families where they have stepchildren that they're still caring for and they have husbands or partners, they keep on trying to be what they're supposed to be for everybody else and may not focus on whatever's going on with them. And sometimes that works great as motivation. It keeps them focused. They focus on work. They do a good job. They put their energy into other children. But in the long run, it really took them down because once the day was over or once they had a moment to themselves, all of those feelings were still there and they were unresolved.
How do they manage to deal? At the end, like it's nighttime, like you said, everything, the kids are put to bed, dinner's done, the dishes are clean, you are sitting in the shower, you're standing in the shower, and now it's all coming down on you. How
Right.
are they managing to deal?
Not in healthy ways. And a lot of them wish they would have talked to someone about it, but not feeling as though they had anybody to connect with or not knowing about any options for counseling. A couple of people did mention faith. Faith was really big in terms of relying on church, relying on religion to understand what was going on. But for a lot of them, there was nothing there. A lot of people didn't want to burden their partners. They just kind of held it in and focused on what they could do to either change the situation or just accepting that, maybe motherhood is not for me. And so I need to kind of let this go. I think the most part that was frustrating for a lot of the women in my study was that they didn't have children with their current partner. So they felt as though I
Maybe
had this child.
family feeling that.
Right. I had this child before with someone who maybe I didn't want to be with long term, or I didn't see it working out. And then I finally meet this person that I want to be with forever or that I'm married to, and we want to start this family together. And now I can't give my partner this gift, or we can't have this gift. And so it was a lot of shame. And what is the status of my relationship at this point if we aren't able to do this?
Mm. So what do you recommend as healthy ways to cope while you're going through the process of acceptance and still trying?
Definitely working with a counselor or finding somebody that understands what's going on. So, somebody that's multiculturally competent, somebody that understands the roles that you have, that may have an understanding of blended families if that's the situation in which you're in, because blended families come with their own sort of problems and challenges
Absolutely.
too. On top of just trying to deal with infertility issues, but definitely meeting or connecting with a counselor to see to talk about your feelings, to realize that they're normal. For me, it was really hard in the beginning to find a social network of people who were going through things and who were sharing their stories or at least talking about infertility or secondary infertility, but I found a network. So social media is really good because it helps if you're not quite ready to share your story, but you want to feel like you're connected with other people who have gone through it. You don't necessarily have to share it, but
Your
you
community for
can
sure.
stay.
And there are some very safe communities too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So connecting in that way, talking about it, and just processing that grief, not necessarily hiding it through work or hiding in other ways, but making sure that you talk about it, find someone that's safe to talk about it with, and then process it.
So let's talk about men though, because I just want to keep reiterating this is the stigma, especially when a woman experiences primary or secondary infertility, is oh my God, there's something wrong with me, and we're not considering that there's a such thing as sperm with low, is it low motility or low
Yes.
motility?
Low motility.
Means that the little swimmers aren't going very fast, or super low sperm count. There's a lot of women, as you mentioned, blended families. Maybe a gentleman has kids and he thought he was done and he got a vasectomy, and now
Right.
he's trying to have it reversed and it's just not working. And so there's blended families do present their own extra layer of insecurities and problems as far as this is concerned. And so let's talk about the fellas though, because I see there's a lot of support groups for women, a lot of help for women, and women are more inclined to go and get help and talk about it.
Right.
What are the men that are supposed to do that after these relationships?
That's difficult because even though there's a layer of shame for the women that experience infertility, I feel like it's an even bigger area of shame for men who might be going through this. I had one couple in my study who the man was actually having male infertility issues, and he was going through the process of getting things reversed and taking vitamins and getting tests done. But as far as having a network of people to talk to, it's very few and far between.
That's got to be such a lonely feeling, men are macho, and,
Right.
it's like, but there's literally not anyone for them to speak to. And most of them are just not willing. So why Black women for this particular study? Why did you focus on the sisters?
There are a lot of additional challenges that Black women tend to go through, especially in the medical field, as far as advocacy, as far as understanding things. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I didn't quite see a network of Black women who were just openly talking about infertility. But I chose to focus on this particular group because of the disparities that go on with medical care and medical issues. A lot of the women in my study knew that something was wrong and kind of mentioned it to the doctor, but the doctor didn't really hear what they were saying until it got to a point to where there's real pain going on or something's going on. And so I decided to focus on this group just because of some of those medical disparities going on with women in terms of understanding their bodies, making sure that they advocate for tests, speak up when things aren't going right, just to make sure that they can have access to an option. So even though we kind of talked about IVF being expensive, it may not be an option for everybody, but do they even know that it's an option? A lot of women didn't even know that there were some steps that they could take in addition to that. And a lot of the women were doing some alternative medicine as well. So I don't just want to go straight to the IVF. We had women who were doing
Chinese medicine, acupuncture,
and things of that nature. But those things weren't even recommended to them. So they would go to the doctor. The doctor would tell them that there was something going on, but didn't quite give them a direction as to what they could do and how they could handle it. And so I focused on this group because it seemed like a lot of women weren't educated about what to do, how to deal with it, and where to go.
Mm-hmm. I know the days of listening to the doctor and the doctor's always right are long gone. Especially now that we've learned about the marginalization of people of color and us not getting proper care. I know I myself have been a victim of just being completely overlooked and have had to loudly advocate for myself in a room full of people who thought that they knew better about my own body than the person living in it.
Right.
How, for the women that don't know how to advocate for themselves, what can they do? Because we don't want to get up and stand up and scream and demand that I get this particular test, or give me another doctor, or I demand that you give me a referral. How are you supposed to advocate for yourself when you're just, when you don't know how?
And it can be hard because, especially in this situation, you get information about infertility challenges or health challenges, and you're already kind of taken aback from this new thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do have to speak up in that manner. Sometimes you do have to do your research and find another doctor. Sometimes, which is what I did too. I felt like I wasn't being heard with one doctor, and so it was just time for me to
There's
find
millions more out there.
It's okay to get a second, a third, and a fourth opinion about what's going on. Doing your research with credible sources on the internet, that's one way. With credible doctors to kind of find out what's going on.
It's like they don't even go together anymore.
And then if you look at something like WebMD, it'll tell you anything and make you think that, the world is falling down.
One time, I was like, girl, you got smallpox, you out of here. Like, yes.
So credible resources. Yes. Credible resources, multiple switch doctors, multiple people if you need to get multiple opinions to kind of understand what's going on, and don't let up. So if there's something different going on with you about how you feel, what you're noticing, anything that's different, make sure that you keep finding who you need to talk to in order to figure it out.
Don't let up, because nobody's going to advocate for your health like you are. And doctors are just people. I know a lot of good doctors. I have a lot of great doctors that are my clients. And so me doing the work I do, and you are a licensed social worker, right?
Professional counselor.
So you understand that we are all we are just human. We're prone to mistakes. We're prone to prejudices. And we might not be bad people, but we all have these preconceived things. And so sometimes you are going to have to speak up and make this person notice you. But if they're not doing it, you're responsible. I can't tell you how many Black women that I've heard of have complained of chest pains during the day at work. Then they went to the ER sent them home, they went home and died. Like, it's your body. You are responsible for your life and your health. And in this case, for your own reproductive system.
Right. And for a lot of these women who experience multiple miscarriages are normal. And so, and that was something that I didn't know at the beginning. I didn't know anybody who had any miscarriages before to know that it was common. But the doctors will treat it as it's common because it is common. But for you and for the people that go,
how common is it? Because you think common, I think of the common cold, but
not as common as the common cold, but the way that doctors do explain it is a lot of women who have multiple children can have 2 or 3 miscarriages in the course of having children and have healthy pregnancies. And so it's not something that's out of the ordinary, or at least if you have 1 or 2 miscarriages, it doesn't necessarily put an alarm up for a lot of doctors. And sometimes that's how they'll treat women, as if, this is something that's normal. It happens with a lot of women. Keep trying and we'll see what happens. However, when it continues to happen, or as we mentioned before, if there's something that you notice about yourself that's different, it may be time to get a second or third opinion.
Lastly, what advice do you have for anybody that might be experiencing infertility?
You are not alone. Find a counselor or someone to speak with to get those feelings out. If you're not comfortable yet, just make sure that you get those feelings out in terms of writing, or just whatever you do to meditate or have self-care. Recognize that you're not the only one going through this. There's no reason to be ashamed. But there is something that you can do to kind of figure out what may be going on and who to connect with. But realize that you're not the only one going through it. You're not in a bubble, and there are people to help.
All right, so tell everybody how to find you. How do they connect with you?
You can connect with me on my new Instagram page. It's brownsugarbabe_IVF.
Okay, brownsugarbabe_IVF. Thank you so much, Ariel. I really appreciate you being here. And you all, please be sure to go to her page, like it, follow it, share it, comment. Make sure you let her know that you heard her here first. We will see you all next time. Ariel, yes!
Yay!
Blacker than black, I'm blacker than black, yo, because I'm black and I'm back. Yo, I'm black and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black and I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black.